All right, and good afternoon again. My name is Jonathan Watts Hall. I'm the Assistant Director for Policy and Partnership Development here at the University System Office. I am the contact person for most of you on Complete College Georgia, and I'm also pleased to be joined with by my colleagues. I've got Heather Collins in here with me. I've got Leslie Ann Fenton with me, and I've got, of course, our Director, Robert Todd, the Director of Policy and Partnership Development. I know I'm being joined online by some of my other colleagues, Barbara Brown, Assistant Vice Chancellor for General and Transitional Ed, Judy Monsis, who is our primary evaluator here at the University System. I'm just really pleased that we're all about, this is the start of my year as far as I'm concerned, folks, and I'm excited to have you all with me. If you come in, you're hopefully muted, and if you have questions as you go, you can check in the chat box, and we'll look at those and answer them as they go, or answer them at the end if that makes more sense. If you come in and your video pops up, I actually can't control that, so be aware of if your little light pops up on your computer, your video, you won't actually be seen until you start talking, but I can't control that for some reason. You should be muted when you come in, and will be muted throughout the event. We've got too many people in to actually have a web conference. So, just in general, what we're going to be covering in the WebEx today, real briefly, this is the roadmap of what we'll cover this afternoon. Even though the updates are very similar to the past few years, we've refined the process, and what we're hoping to get out of this, so we do have a fair amount to cover. Even with this, I promise you, I'm sure we'll be able to cover this completely in well under an hour. We'll have time for questions. We'll get you back into your afternoon. Again, if we have questions as you go through, there's a chat box. If you don't see the chat box, somewhere in the WebEx interface, I'm sure there's something that says chat or has a cute little icon that you might that would indicate that. Go ahead and poke around. You can always email. If you got a question, I would say email Leslie Ann Fenton, who's been your contact for this, and she can help you with some of these technical questions about WebEx. So again, here's the overview. We're going to talk about the purpose and function of the updates. We're going to go through the process of the updates, the parts of it. We're going to talk a little bit about the objectives, both for us and you. We're going to have a fairly robust conversation about what's new. It's not a lot, but I want to make sure we cover that well. Have a conversation about the review process, the feedback you can expect, how you submit the report to us, which is largely unchanged, but still something you want to take a look at. And finally, we'll wrap up with our campus liaisons, which is, again, unchanged from last year. So again, let's move right on in. The purpose and the function. Essentially, why are we doing this? Why bother? So institutions are asked to update their campus plans. These campus plans date back to 2012. They was the first time they were done, and annually we asked them to update them. We asked institutions to update them to the system office. For us, these reports provide an essential window into the work and the priorities of our institutions across the state. For institutions, it's hoped that the annual review and reporting process provides you with an opportunity to reflect on your work, refine your goals, your objectives, the path by which you'll get there. So we're really hoping that the CCG goals are aligned with your overall strategic plan as an institution, and that they're really just a reflection of the highest priority, highest impact work, and how you're going to get there. So, does anyone use these things? I think it's a valid question. Are we just writing a report that sits on a desk or in a shelf somewhere in some untraveled place on the internet? The question is, the answer to that is really no. That these are not just reports. The answer is yes, someone uses them. No, they're not placed on a shelf. The system office uses the information in the campus plan updates in a number of ways. First and foremost, the details on the strategies being deployed across the system helps to set the priorities for the activities of our unit at the system office. Knowing what work is underway and what challenges and successes have been met helps to orient what we do to support campuses through meetings, research, outreach, and other activities. We further refer to the campus plans regularly throughout the year as requests for information on campus-level activities come into the system office from the legislature, the governor's office, from our philanthropic partners, and others. Having a comprehensive document of campus priorities and strategies is essential to responding to these inquiries. We use them all the time, and we go back to them time and time again. And quite frankly, we don't have an idea of what is going on in the field in a lot of ways unless you tell us about it through the campus plans. We also use the reports as an opportunity to review and refine the work that is underway on campuses. No two institutions are likely to see the same opportunities in exactly the same way, but the ability to share best practices and lessons learned from our collective work is an enormous advantage that working in a system provides public institutions of higher education in Georgia. Leveraging this advantage is among our most important tasks. So, having said that, having underlined that this is an important process and it does get used, and we do hope that it is used at the campus level, I want to talk a bit about the process. So the update process, again, it's very similar to previous years. There are two parts of the updates. There's a strategy survey, which has been revamped, but is, well, somewhat similar, and a narrative report. Now, the narrative report is largely the meat of the matter. It's what y'all mostly think about in terms of what you have to report on, and I know it does take the bulk of the effort. The narrative report is still split into 3 sections. It's largely unchanged. Again, you have the institutional mission, student body profile, which tells us sort of who you are, what you think you should be doing. You have your summary of activities, which is essentially what you've done this past year in order to serve and meet your institutional goals. And then finally, an observations and projections section. It used to be we just do it observations. For some reasons that we'll go into later, we're doing observations and projections so you can tell us both what you've seen and where you think you're going to go next. So everyone wants to talk about the timeline. First, it's important to keep ourselves on our timeline. The campus plan update process actually began with the release of the instructions back on May 27th and the announcement of this webinar. It was followed by this particular web conference, which is where your instructions come from, and I kind of feel like this is where the year actually begins for the campus plans. We will be releasing data for data workbooks that's been validated out of the data collection in about 2 weeks, maybe sooner. And this is actually something new, and we'll be talking about it later on in the webinar. But these are validated data that comes out of our data warehouse, thanks to the very hard work of Laura Haygood and our research and policy analysis group, as well as the folks over at Georgia Beth. They have put together what are essentially baseline data points for you all to look at, and that's going to come out, like I said, about June 22nd. I think they may be done a little earlier. We want to get as much into them as possible and then get them out to you as you start to do both your strategy survey work and your ongoing work on your narrative reports. The strategy survey that opens up actually today is asked to be completed by August 18th. That's also the due date for your report if you want to have peer review. So again, that sort of underlines something that's coming ahead. Like any good blockbuster, we're foreshadowing great big events, but peer review becomes is something of an optional item this year, and that's again in response to some feedback we've gotten from campuses. So in September, we hope to submit any data updates that we have had to the validated data that we can get you. So that's the latest point at which we'd get you that. We'll be doing a campus progress check. We're just going to check in September with you. With such a long gap between when we talk now and when your reports are due, we're just going to check up on you in September. We're not going to be nagging you. We're just going to be making sure that everything's on track and that you don't need anything from us. Also, if you do submit a report, if you have submitted your report for an optional peer review, we hope to get that review back to you in mid-September, so that for the month of October, you will be able to drive through and really finalize these plans. We're asking for the final updates to come back to us just before Halloween on the 28th of October, and we will then format them, and we will review them finally, and then submit them to the governor's office on the 1st of December. That happens in years past, and it's the same schedule as always. We will then let you know when those final reports are available to you. We'll send them back out to you. You can see from this timeline, there's a few changes in the process. Like I said, we sort of foreshadowed some of our bigger changes. These changes have all been made largely in response to your input. We appreciate that feedback that we've gathered from you all last year. We encourage you as we go throughout this process, as you go through it, to keep in touch with us to let us know how the process can be improved, how it can be made more useful for you on your campuses. So let's dive right on in. The first part is that strategy survey. The strategy survey is an online survey tool. It's been updated from 2015. It seeks slightly more detail on some activities. Specifically, it's going to ask for some specific populations. In the past, we said, are you serving underserved populations? This year, we're just breaking it out. That's really the biggest change we've got. We've also included some information about modes of advising. That is brand new, and that is actually in response to some information needs that that have emerged out of our conversations with campuses, that there is a great deal of interest in knowing what is going on in that area. And equally, we're looking for some modes of delivery or the delivery model on learning support. Shouldn't be a lot more research for you. You should be able to identify that fairly quickly. But again, those are new elements in the survey. There are some questions that have been eliminated. We have eliminated all the numeric questions. You don't have to put in any numbers on this. And it doesn't, we hope, it's not duplicating any other surveys. I realize that most of you will have gotten a survey for Guided Pathways not too long ago. It may look a little similar, but these shouldn't actually be identical surveys. I'm hoping it takes 45 minutes or less to complete. If it takes longer, let me know and tell me why, and we'll do what we can to improve that process. Again, let's get it done by the 18th and submit it to us. So the thing about the strategy survey is it's updated from last year is that you can now save it, you can review your work beforehand. The Guided Pathways survey was a nice little test model because it taught us something about it, and that's going to be that, and this is again what the survey will look like when you get to it. You can see over on the left all the menu items, you can directly get to it. And if you look at that top little buttons area there, it asks you to create an account. That is so that you can save it. It is optional. It is optional for you to create an account, but it is recommended, and here is why. If you are completing the survey and you feel you will be able to complete the survey in one fell swoop, you may start it and finish it and submit it, and there will be no problem, and you will be able to do it. Even if you're interrupted briefly on your computer, it should save it. It will save it as a draft. You can save it as a draft at any stage, and you can save it as a draft. It will save as a draft every time you change a page. But because of the way the survey device works, it eliminates surveys that have been held on to for greater than 72 hours, possibly as little as 36 hours, and so that you don't lose your work, I would highly recommend you create an account. Create an account is a very simple process. You'll see that button there that says create an account, and when you click on it, you're going to go into a page that asks you to create a username and your email. Any username is fine. Email should be the email that you can access. When you get to that username, once you get that, submit that, create a new account, it will actually send you back to it'll actually ask you if you want to do this again. Just look for the email to come in, and then go to log, and then you'll go put in your username there, your email there, and then when you hit return, you'll get an email. Your email will give you a link. It'll send you to a place to change your email. You'll create or change your password. I'm sorry, change your password. You'll actually create the password, and then you can log in. You create with your username. At this address, this is how you'll log in. It's also a login link from the survey itself. But you go there, you can put in your username, your password, and it'll put you into the survey, and you'll actually be able to save it and come back to it. You could actually start it today and come back to it on August 17th, and all of the work you've done, so long as you've logged in, will be there. You can change computers. You can do this from your phone, your iPad, your desktop computer, however you want to do it. Don't panic, folks. This is a new wrinkle that we just sort of figured out today thanks to one of our campuses. If you have any problems or questions about it, you can always contact me, and I will walk you through the process. So, linked to this, the strategy survey, again this year will not generate a list of suggested metrics. Although that list is still available, the metrics that are listed through the Metrics Strategies Guide, it's available online. It's linked in the website. It is it's intended as guidance. It's not intended as a comprehensive list of what you should be sending or should be looking at. It's really intended as guidance. And one of the reasons why we went away from this is too many campuses were burdening their IR offices with too much data requests we felt that were unnecessary to complete the report, and I think it was because we'd given poor guidance on what the metrics guide was really intended to do. Again, we are going to deliver to you a workbook of metrics there. They are also not considered comprehensive. They're not considered the extent of what you need to report, but they should give you some baseline idea of what we see longitudinally in our data set for where you are on your campus. They are, incidentally, uniform across campuses, so it may be that some of them make more sense for some campuses than others. You also have access to data and information related to specific programs and specific populations that we just do not have access to here. And if that is the case, and I would note that that's particularly the case with programs that serve particular populations and also populations that are served within programs where that would not be placed into, their participation would not be placed in the banner that would get uploaded to the data collection. Knowing that information is great. So that's the sort of end of the strategy survey and its related metrics guide. The next part of it, and this is the sort of more substantial part, is that narrative report. Narrative report is broken into 3 sections. Section 1, institutional mission and student body profile. It's an overview of who you are and what you do and why you exist. You don't need to give us a comprehensive overview of your student body. You don't need to give us a boilerplate of your institutional mission. What we're really looking for is a distilled reporting of what makes you unique as an institution, who you are, and who you serve. Feel free to include student body data within this section. You can place it in an appendix if you like. If you're going to place it in an appendix, make sure we know it's there. And also, if you're going to place data in an appendix, reference it in the body so we sort of can see it all put together. And also that the audiences who are not necessarily as familiar with you as a campus can know that it's there and can find it. If you include extensive data tables, let's make sure that they're related to the work that is described later in the report. There's no obligation to report on a huge amount of your student population if you aren't going to later on discuss it in your institutional in completion goals, activities, and strategies. Simply put, we're happy to know about it, but also we want to make sure these reports are all sort of driving towards a single point. Gets us to that section 2, the institutional completion goals, high-impact strategies and activities. This is the section of the report that discusses your activities. There's an updated matrix for this. So this is actually sort of one of these things that we have sort of been struggling with over the past few years. And we changed this year, and this is a big change. We'll talk about this in the What's New section, but I'm going to underscore it here, because this was one of the most consistent parts of the feedback I got when I went out, when we got from campuses, and that is that we were limited. We have historically limited. We've asked for you to report on your top 5 priorities, and campuses indicated that that was insufficient for some. They also felt like they were reaching in other ways. Some campuses, I will applaud, only reported on 3 or 4 because that's what were the most high priorities for them. Others felt they really wanted to report on 7, and inevitably we're cramming them into the 5 that we were given. So this year, we're removing the restriction of 5 strategies. And I know there'll be, obviously you're all muted because the cheering would be fairly robust. But I want to underscore something else. We're asking you to report on each activity that is a priority and to report them separately and discreetly and fully. So each strategy should now, or activity should now be its own section within your narrative. Now, this is not intended as a call for expanded reporting. I don't want someone to feel like they should now report on 20 things, 10 things. Pardon me. It's an acknowledgement that some institutions may need to report on more than 5 elements of their plans. It's also a recommendation that we can make these much more useful as documents to share across institutions if they are really discrete to the activity that is within them. Reports should continue to be of a reasonable length. If you find your report exceeding 10 pages, not including the appendices, you're encouraged to consider some elements that may be outside the scope of the updates, and certainly be encouraged to contact your liaison. So the narrative report this is what we're asking for. This is essentially the matrix. We're going to dive through this we'll dive through this. This is relatively unchanged with a few new elements, but relatively unchanged from years past. It includes the general definition, the campus goal to which it's aligned, but there's a few new things in here, and we're going to talk them through. So we ask that no matter how you report, and we provide you with both a matrix, an actual Word document, and a form that you may use, or you may do this in your own form. But we ask you that you include this information as an element of your report. And this is really helpful in order to make the reporting consistent across institutions, and also to make sure that we can share this information with other institutions within the system who are engaged in the same work. And that's a really critical part of what we're trying to get these reports to be, these updates to be in this year and the years ahead. So the first is a statement of why. So the new elements that we've done this year. The first one is this. It's a statement of explaining why the strategy is high impact or high priority. This isn't really so much a new element as it's been separated out from previous years. Most people have in the past included why this is important. What we're asking to do is really connect the dots. Should be fairly simple. Why is this important? What part of your mission or student body profile does this connect to? It's really there to underscore the connection between your understanding of yourself as an institution and what you're working on. And it helps us to see your work through the lens of your institution. The second element that is new this year is a principal point of contact for the activity. This was actually sort of connected to the idea of separating out strategies, and this is the most important part for campuses and their feedback. So if you're wondering why we're asking for this, it has a lot to do with the way campus plans are developed on campuses and how they are seen as being used. We're asking that every strategy on your campus be linked to a person on campus who could answer questions about it and give more information about it, so that when a partner from another institution is looking for some more support, they have an instant way of identifying that and finding those resources out in the university system. We also will help to develop some of the feedback, and we're going to get some of that later. The third element of the report that's new is really, again, not new. It's just that we've cleaned this up a bit. We've cleaned up the metrics section to minimize confusion. We're going to get to this in a little more detail later, but the measures you should be using should really all be the same. We actually probably made a mess of it 2 years ago, and we're sort of still feeling the sting of it, but we're asking that you apply the same measures. And we're asking you to apply actual counts and percentages that serve as the baseline, as markers along the way, so every annual progress marker. And then if it's appropriate and if it's in place, the final goal. Where do you want to be? What's your final goal for this? And again, we'll get back to that a little bit later. Finally, and now while this isn't really new, we're emphasizing this year that each strategy should be its own element. And again, to facilitate this, we're no longer limiting the number of strategies you can report, so you can have as many as you need, so that you're not packing two strategies. You don't feel you have to put two really good, important strategies into one section of your narrative report. By having them separate, even if they're related, it allows us to share them out. Even if they're coordinated by the same person, it allows us to share that information more easily with your partners. So, as I noted, the narrative report, we are providing you with the matrix. This is actually what it looks like in Word. This is the basic matrix. Actually, most of you got this last year. It's just a Word file, and you can use this table and fill it in as you will. We also have a form. It's been field tested. I'm not going to guarantee that it's the most user-friendly. It is moderately user-friendly, and you can, again, save it. I supplied this because the campus asked and said they'd really like a form, and we'll see. If anyone field tests it and it's disastrous, I will take that feedback into account. So finally, the narrative report, the third section. I guess I should say one thing about no matter which of these two you use, or if you go on to your own version, and again, all these are linked off of the website, completega.org. No matter what you do, we have no preference. Your report still needs to come to us combined into one file in Word. So whatever works for you is great. But again, just make sure that when we get it, we get one file and it comes into us as a Word file. So the narrative report's third section, the observations section, it's really for observations and sort of looking forward. It's a place for you to discuss. Within the narratives, you'll note that there's a place for lessons learned. That's lessons learned about what you've learned about as implementing that particular strategy. The observation section sort of takes a step back and says, what have we learned about our work as a whole? Where are we succeeding? Where are we not succeeding? Where do we need different? Where are we coming up against obstacles? We'd like to hear about the challenges, the successes you've had and encountered. We also want to hear how your completion work will evolve and why. What are you going to change? What are you going to keep the same? What do you see what sort of support or further research you need? How can the system office support you? How can your peers and other institutions support you in this work? As a final note, I want to note that, because we're about to leave the campus, the narrative reporting section, I understand that this process will vary from campus to campus. We hope that the development of CCG updates will reflect the broadest representation of staff and faculty on institutions. And the number of folks you get, I mean, I know this is a monster of a thing to negotiate, but we hope it will be as broad as possible. And again, that sort of feedback is also useful for us to have. Pardon me. We have a question. We have a question about appendices, if they're allowed this year, and indeed, yes. Appendices are allowed. If you're going to put an appendix in, as in years past, the appendix is a great place to place data in particular, or exhibits, documents that support something within the report that is really too long to be placed in there. So data from your progress on a strategy, go ahead and link it to an appendix and include it there. If you do that, make sure that your appendix some way indicates the table so that you can go back and forth quickly. So in other words, if you've got your strategy 3 is transforming remediation, and you have an appendix, you mention appendix that discusses your progress data on transforming remediation by mode of delivery, make sure that the reader could clearly jump between those sections and find that data table they need, either through a table number or a table name that is clearly indicated in the body of the report as well as in the appendix. If that answers the question, we'll move on. If that doesn't, come on back with it, and I'll try and be even less clear the next time until you stop asking that question. So moving on, the objectives. Sort of, what are we looking for and what are we hoping to gain out of this? So the objectives for this, what are we looking for? So the system wants to know about your highest priority, highest impact work. This is really important. We understand that, and having been on campuses now, we've done a little bit better job of being out at institutions and having seen the work that goes on. These reports don't even get to the tip of the iceberg when it gets down to the work that goes on. And that's something we just have to acknowledge, recognize, and be comfortable with. But what we really want to do is, what is your highest impact, highest priority work? So we talk about that. When I say high priority work, I mean high priority work should be determined by an assessment of that institutional mission and profile. It's who you are as an institution, who you serve, what your aspirations and goals are as a community. We ask that you provide us that picture of your institutional mission to put it into context. If you're working on a particular strategy or activity, it should be clear why that strategy links to that, why it's a priority. It's affecting a group that you really should affect it in a direct way, or that is a core part of your mission, or that this is an area where you really need to be successful. High impact work should have the potential to affect significant numbers of students or have a significant impact on a specific community of students, or both. It should be something that is has a major effect on your institution's community going forward. They may, high impact strategies may be very limited in scope, with the objective of assessing their potential for bringing the work up to scale. You may have something that you think is really high impact, but you don't want to jump in both feet, and that is fine, so long as we sort of understand that that's going to scale. So in order to help you frame your work and share this information across institutions, again, use that sample framework. It should all sort of pull it all together and give us that sense. So that's a way that we can make sure that we're able to see the impact fairly clearly. Something else I want to talk about is we're looking for work. We're really looking for work within the narrative section that reflects on the things you've done in the 2015-2016 year, the year that just closed out. This is somewhat difficult, I think, for people because it feels like stepping into a time machine. They're writing these reports oftentimes as they plan for the 2016 or even 2017, 2017-2018 school years. You're in the midst of your 2016-2017 school year, and now we're asking you, hey, tell us what you did last year. But this is really sort of where we are looking for the retrospective of your accomplishments and your challenges, and we want to then use the observation section, that section 3, to talk about the where you're going next. So what are we also looking for? So connected to this discussion about what we're looking for are measures of progress and success. We're looking for, and I'm going to highlight this here because we had a lot of questions about it last year. For those of you who got it, who nailed it, who didn't get comments or questions about it, you can switch over to Amazon and come back in about 2 minutes. For the rest of you, so what we're looking at, we're really looking at campuses consider the baseline measure, the condition of whatever you're reviewing, the year prior to the intervention, and then set out what your interim measures are. So that same metric that was in place before, say, the number of students who are succeeding in gateway courses in remedial, who are entering in remediation, before you went to transform to a transformed model, to a co-rec model, and then starting from the year that you implemented and every year past, what is that number of students passing the gateway course? That's an example. And then in the end, our goal would be, what does that final number look like? So if you're saying that right now we had a success rate before of 26% having passed the gateway course, entering into remediation in 2 years, and the first year we went to 67%, and then the next year we went to 69%, and the next year we went to 72%. Your goal may be 85%. It may be 100%. It may be that this goal-setting discussion is one that has not taken place on campus yet, and I acknowledge that that may be true. But use this as an opportunity to say, what are our goals for this, so that we can say, look at it and say, where are we going? I'm going to be very clear. No one's going to hold your feet to the fire on these goals. We are not going to come back and shake a stick at you, and I have a feeling that that is a concern that campuses have, that we're going to use this as a gotcha moment, and that is absolutely not the intention. And I can guarantee you that that is the case, that I will stand for campuses to say, give me an honest figure of where you think you can go and shoot for it. And from a USG institution, I will not support the use of that as a penalizing marker, certainly not within our context. The measure of progress is simply that metric as measured during implementation, going forward, and then that final goal. If you have questions about them, you can contact your liaison. You can also contact me directly. Yeah, finally, again on this slide, it says, and this is something I'm hammering home because this is new, and you'll see it, so you'll see it one more time. Report the strategy separately, and give us the contact form. And these are both actually sort of more in response to what institutions have asked for. So those of you who got the metrics correct, welcome back. We're going to talk about what's new for 2016. It's going to look like a lot, and this is going to look like a lot from a guy who just told you that we really didn't change very much, but it's really only marginal changes. I really do think they are fairly similar both in format and process for the past 2 years. That's been a goal of mine since I got here, was to make sure we weren't changing the way this happened every year, except for in response to feedback from you, that we've made some small adjustments, and we've made hopefully improvements. And again, if they are not improvements, or if you identify a new improvement, please contact me. Contact me at any point during this process that it comes up, and certainly after this you'll be invited to give any of your feedback to me. The strategy survey is updated. Again, it asks for slightly more data, slightly more detail on some things. It eliminates some questions. It allows us to dig a little deeper into the nature of some of the work you're doing. Shouldn't take more than 45 minutes. And we've gone over the fact that you can log in, log out, and save your submissions. Share your submissions. Somebody else can log into your account and use that and complete it if you want them to. There's a revised metrics guide and validated data coming out. Really, the metrics guide is relatively similar to years past. That validated data is more the thing I think we're going to be excited about. It allows you to take a look at what we have in our data collection, and it may help you to start as a starting point. I still think you're going to wind up going to your IR or institutional effectiveness departments for some of your more nuanced data, but it also does relieve some of that burden, I hope, from you. Again, we're not asking you to change your measures. Institutions that are confident with the measures that you've been using to gauge your progress, encouraged to continue to monitor those markers. We're not giving you the data to change what you're doing. We're simply doing that to facilitate and add to what you are already have at hand. There are some slight additions to the narrative report, as I noted. Principal contact is the main one. The sort of direct link to the impact and priority is the other one. We've removed the limits. We are asking you to be reasonable in the length, and I'm going to make that plea because I am the one person who does read every single campus plan, and I am delighted to do so, but I have somewhat bounded amount of time to go through them. So also in response, this is actually the biggest change I think that you will sense as people completing the process, and that is peer review is now optional. This is in response to suggestion from campuses. The peer review process, for some campuses, it felt like sort of just a grammar review. And what we really want to do is make this much more into a functional review. You have the option of submitting it still. If you wish to have your review, your update reviewed by a group of peers, we'll need it by the 18th of August, which is about when they were due last year for peer review. If you opt out of peer review, what you'll get will be feedback from us, perhaps, hopefully, on your activities, and they may not happen until after they've been submitted to the governor. We do reserve the right to sort of edit them as they go, just to make sure that everything's consistent, but that report will only come back to us in October, and that will be that is a big difference. And again, there is no judgment placed at all on whether a plan comes into us or not. If you have questions about whether your plan should be submitted for review or how that might happen, feel free. Additionally, you may submit parts of your plan if you wish, but not all of it. That's perfectly acceptable as well. The nature of peer review will hopefully be different for 2016. The comprehensive update reviews will be done by CCG staff. This is basically to say, are we seeing all the connections going on? Is everything holding together as a piece? Campus peer reviewers will be asked to provide targeted, specific, strategic reviews. In other words, if you're working on new learning models, we're going to try and pull together a group of folks on campuses who can speak to new learning models, and they will see those plans. So what we're looking for in terms of peer reviewers is a little different. We're asking for anybody on this call, certainly, to serve as a reviewer if they feel comfortable. We're also asking for content area experts out in your departments, out in your units, to serve as peer reviewers if they want. There's a form to sign up for it online. You may actually fill it in for them. I do ask that if you fill it in for them that you get their permission, because we will be contacting them. And there's a little indicator on that form that says, do they know this is coming, essentially. And the only reason we do that is so that if we contact them by email and they don't have any idea, we have a different conversation than if it's either been submitted by the person who is volunteering or if they have been contacted about it. So again, Peer review is optional this year, optional for all, and it's also something you can disaggregate. You can have us review only 3 of your narratives. You can have us review all of your report. The review will come in and will be used as a process to give you feedback on the actual content of the activities that you're engaged in on campus. I will note, this is the first year we've done it. We are really kind of stepping off the ledge with this. We're not sure how much peer review support we're going to have, so in that sense I'm not going to make any guarantees, but I do hope, because this was something that I heard quite a bit from campus contacts, that this was something they really wanted to see us get to, and I'm really hoping that we do. So all of the support you can give to us would be extremely welcome. Again, it's completega.org/peer_review, and that link is also on the CCG 2016 updates website. So, we've gotten all the way through. You have your report. What do you do with it? So you can send it to us. Updates should be 1 Microsoft Word file, no PDFs. They need to be from the President's office, and I'm going to be clarifying this because this has been one of those things that we've gotten urgent, frantic, panic calls. My president is off campus and they can't give me a signature, or I can't get it submitted. And we understand these things happen, and that's fine. It does not need to have an actual signature on it. It just needs to come from the president's office or through the president's office with their signature. It can be done online. You can see it there. It's completega.org/submit_2016. It can be sent by email. Either way, you will get a confirmation that it came in. If you submitted it and you didn't get a confirmation, email me. I will go and take a look, and I will see if it's showed up. And if it hasn't showed up, we'll work it through. You can also submit them directly to me at that point, but it is far better to submit it either through the CCG email or most preferable through that completega.org. Now, submitting it through the President's office when you're submitting it online will mean that basically the President will be the person who, or the representative will be the person on the front line, and then that email will be somebody who is in the President's office answering it. We don't go back and check that, but it's very important because these things end up going on to the governor and the legislature, and we want to make sure that this represents the work of the institution. Again, they're due by October 28th to the office, unless you want a optional peer review, in which case it's August 18th. I am going to hand over now, and I hope I'm going to make this work. I'm going to hand over to Leslie Ann Fenton. Leslie Ann, I'm going to apologize if I drop you. Who's going to go over the process of our campus liaisons. Again, campus liaisons are back for this year. We have had campus liaisons. They're there to help answer your questions, direct your inquiries. And you can again, they should be well versed in any of the campus plan process. I will always answer your questions. I am also your first point of contact for any technical information. And I'm going to introduce Leslie Ann to go over sort of who these folks are and how they and a little bit more about them.
All right. Do I have to come over there? Yeah. All right. Just let me know if you can't hear me very well. So like Jonathan said, we're doing the campus liaisons again this year, so if you just want to take a moment to find your institution and see who is your campus contact this year, well actually your CCG contact this year. This information is also on the CCG website, so don't feel like you have to memorize it right now or write everything down right now. And as you'll notice, I'm not included this year as a campus liaison. And there's a very good reason for that, since I will be having a baby this August. So I wanted to go ahead and just take this opportunity to let you guys know that I'll be out for a few months starting in August, because I know many of you are used to email me with general questions. So please feel free to continue to do so for the next 8 weeks or so. And then after that, these are the people that you can contact if you have any questions about your campus plans. And then as a general rule of thumb, you can also contact Jonathan Hull for any general questions related to your campus plans. Anything else that you wanted to say?
That's it. Unless you're done. Thanks, Leslie.
All right.
And I mostly wanted to let Leslie Ann pass along that news. Seemed appropriate.
Thank
All right.
you, Jonathan.
So we have at 46 minutes. Oh, and I'm going to say this: an observant member of an institution noted that we have Georgia Regents University on this list still, which is not a news release. It's an oversight. Georgia Regents. I think actually that will place you under Jonathan Watts Hall. So that's a penalty for Georgia Regents for noting that, because it will shift you over alphabetically to where I am. But other than that, nothing will change. And Georgia Regents can always call Heather Collins if they want a less error-ridden answer. So all of the resources, well, not all of the resources, most of the resources you will need to complete your campus plan is on the CCG Campus Plan Updates 2016 website, which is conveniently completega.org/plans2016. From that page, you can get to your instructions. You can see the survey, the strategy survey and preview, the metrics guide and narrative overview instructions, matrix form, peer review nomination submission link, campus liaison list, and this presentation as soon as we get it up. If you have any urgent questions about it, I encourage you to write them into the question box, the chat box. If you are, if a question comes up and you can't remember it, or you don't get to it at the time, go ahead and email it to either me or put it into the general ccg@usg.edu, and that we'll get an answer to you. And if we get a host of questions, we'll actually create an FAQ on the website. At this point, I don't know what our frequently asked questions will be, but if we get enough, we'll generate those and they'll be there for you to see as well as a resource. So I'm going to give you about 2 or 3 minutes to come up with questions. Again, I encourage all of you, as you go through this process, to feedback to us any updates, any feelings you have about how this could be improved, made easier, or made more better alignment with your own on-campus strategic planning work. Close it. Because it's really important for us that this work tie into the work you have on campus. Well, at this point, I'm not seeing any questions come in, which may mean I actually disabled the chat box. But if you do have questions, go ahead and send them to my email, jonathan.hull@usg.edu, or to ccg@usg.edu, and we'll get back to you. This presentation will be posted very soon. The video link to this, so you can relive this magic moment, will be available to you as well. So, how about that, folks? We'll get back to this. Where am I? Oh, I know what happened. There we go. Sorry about that. I just lost my screen. Here. So thank you again for all of your time. We have come to the end of our session. Let me get back all the way to the end. Whew. Look at this. This is actually a quick review for everybody, just so you can see everything you went to. And there we are. Okay. I appreciate your time, and I will check in with you all as we go. Thank you so much.